listening everywhere from iTunes to Pandora to Spotify. We're all over the place, but mostly we're right here on Voice America. So Jeffrey Hayzlett, there's a lot of introduction I could do, but I'm a big fan of not doing the introduction. So I'm going to bring him right here and add a spotlight and just say hi. We'll uncover who he is. I hate when people read these long intros. So how you doing there, Jeff?
I am doing great. And by the way, I caught you on the Weather Channel today. So congrats on that. I don't even know what you were selling, but I said, there's Forbes. I got so excited. So it was great seeing you this morning on TV doing a pitch for someone on something. I can't even remember what it was, but I should have paid more attention to that.
Well, I will tell you what, as we're growing and coming back into the world of television, I forgot that television was even there for a while. I think during the pandemic, everything was streaming for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, understanding how to do influencer deals, products, that's always been my lifeline. I love products. I love things that you can touch and feel and hold and promote. But I will tell you, for the last 3 years, I put my products aside and really focused on coaching, focused on humanity. But you've always been in that space. You and I circled around for decades. Yep. So I'm going to let it come from you. Tell everybody a little bit about Mr. Jeffrey Hayzlett.
Well, I'm just a guy from South Dakota trying to make a living. I mean, that's the way I describe it. But, in my life, I've bought and sold over 250 companies, well over 25 billion, been a Fortune 100 officer, a primetime television host on Bloomberg and now C-Suite TV and a podcaster on CBS Radio. I helped them to get started with their podcast network when they started with that and became one of their 4 big anchors. Heading that program. And then I took it and created C-Suite Radio. Now we have 450 podcast shows and doing 50 million downloads and just having a blast. That's all I'm doing is helping to put together a trusted network of C-Suite executives and the people who serve them and just having a blast. So, you naked mastermind, I want to go. I would probably scare everybody out of there, but it would just be fun because, that's the way I live my life. Metaphorically naked. I mean, right. It is what you see is what you get with me. That's the way I've always been. And it's certainly people through this hour that we'll spend together will certainly get a good sense of, hey, this guy just says it like it is. And that's who I am, and most of the times on my TV shows or even my books or whatever, people always say that, did he just say that? Did he say that? Because that's just the way I am. I think it's a lot easier to do that. And so, because, it's hard enough being yourself. Why would you want to be somebody else and fake it? Or, it's just
but you couldn't, wait, you couldn't really do that. You were the CMO of a very large company that I don't think, Kodak doesn't exist anymore, do they?
Yeah, they do. They went bankrupt a couple of years ago. I left back in 2010. But the writing was certainly on the wall that it was really a tough transition. We kept them alive a lot longer than they should have been because they totally missed the digital revolution. They had the chance of it. They created the first digital camera. They were such innovators. They just believed that they were a film company when they were never a film company. They were an emotional technology company. So yeah, when you're at those levels doing things, you have to be very forthright. You have to be matter of fact and things because, anything you can say or do could cause a material change, which could plummet the stock of the company or, you always make sure that if you're representing a brand like that, or quite frankly, any brand, because a brand is nothing but a promise delivered, you have to really walk the talk.
I went to University of Rochester.
Did you really?
Kodak. Yeah.
My goodness. Oh my gosh.
So were you up in Rochester? Was that part
of it? Oh, yeah. I was up on State Street on the 17th floor. My office, if you look up at that building, which is still there today, you look up at that building, my office was under the K.
Oh, that's very funny. What years were that?
I was there through 2006 to 2010. So really, some pretty tough years when you think about 2008, the massive recession that we were in at that time. The downturn of the economic crisis that we faced. Yeah, I was there right during that time. Probably one of the best educations I ever got in my life. Because I moved from Main Street in Sioux Falls, South Dakota to basically to Wall Street.
Well, let's slow down for a second because for people catching up, it's a lot. Because we are talking about, because we all had a Kodak camera if you're a certain age. Yeah. Let's go back to little young Jeffrey for a second because. When you were talking about being a disruptive, being a free thinker, and when I think of corporate, I don't think of that kind of a person. How did you even get to where you were? What did your dad do for a living?
My dad was in the military. He was a sergeant in the United States Air Force, did 3 tours in Vietnam. We were basically lived from Air Force Base. I never went to a school more than a couple years at any given place because we were constantly moving around during that time. My mother was a bookkeeper who later became a real estate agent and then ran a very successful real estate franchise, 5 different offices, really, built the wealth of the family. At that time, although I'd already gone, I moved out of the house when I was 16, been on my own ever since. And met my wife in college. We've been married now for 42 years, together for 43. Yeah, it's amazing. Because we've watched so many of our friends. I've gone to 2 or 3 of their weddings. So,
How
which
many
is
divorces did you go to,
yeah,
though?
a lot of divorces too. Yeah, and by the way, when someone has a divorce, you never know whether to say congratulations or condolences. But
I just say congratulations. I think it's a
yeah,
chapter. You closed it, move on, and yay.
yeah. And we grow. And luckily there's people like me. Look, I know me, I wouldn't be married to me. So, I'm lucky to have somebody that sticks with me for this doggone long and knows my ups and my downs like every human being has. And so she's just and a big cheerleader for me as well, without question. But she's the one. I'd be dead if I weren't with her. I know that. That's a fact. I'd be dead. I would have worked myself into the ground. I would have had so many addictions because of the kind of personality that I am, person that I am, but like most people, I would have just, worked myself to, and by the way, work is an addiction. If for those that don't know that you can have problems with all kinds of addictions, and being a workaholic is one of those.
Yeah, I kind of straddle that, and I credit my second husband for that, for just being a lot of fun and going, let's get away from here and travel and eat meals,
Yeah.
and because I love what I do as well. So you set out, your dad is doing all this. You don't have a stable, group of friends, which I think is fascinating because I didn't have any friends growing up. I had a
Yeah.
very strange childhood. Physically, I had a very strange nose and braces, and I couldn't talk for 2 years. And it
Oh, wow.
led to a very unique upbringing, which, as I reflect upon it in my speeches and I talk about all the time, congratulations for me. Because if you're somebody who judged your worth by other people accepting you or liking you or being part of a group, I never had that. I never had to worry about
Yeah.
that. It sounds like you're a little similar in that. What did you
Oh,
set out to want to be doing?
just to, well, to one, survive, eat, because when I moved out of the house when I was 16. I was working full time while I was, in high school, doing all that, still student body president, all that kind of stuff. But just be better than I want to have and build wealth. I mean, I have 3 rules for my life. One's build wealth because that's how we keep score. And I want a life for my children and my grandchildren and those that come after to have a better life than I had. And to be better prepared. Second, I want to learn new things. I love learning. I read. I'm a voracious reader. I saw somebody bragging about reading 20 books. I'm going, 20 books? What are you talking about? That's nothing. That's a month and a half, right? But
Wow.
learning is one, and then having, enjoying what I do, liking what I do, liking the people around me. Those are my clear conditions of satisfaction. So when someone said, "Hey, you had this dream, what was it?" I didn't have that. My dream was surviving first, and then, right, and then doing the things that led me to. I just knew it would be bigger than what I was doing, and it would be big. I always knew that. I always had that feeling that I would always be there. I was going to succeed. I was always going to do it. That doesn't mean you don't have voices in your head. I just stopped listening to them a long time ago.
Well, let me ask you a quick question, which is really interesting. What's your first memory in life? I know that sounds crazy and a little offbeat, but
I was thinking about that the other day. One of my first memories is of my grandmother. I burned my hand. That's about 3. That's probably when had to be around 3 because she died when I was very young. And I put my hand on the stove and burned it my hand. And my grandmother grabbed a stick of butter and put it on my hand. That's
and what
my
would okay, what was your decision about life based on that moment, do you think?
Well, there's always someone there that's going to be there in your worst and darkest times. Probably that's it. I mean, if you really look down it, right? And then don't do that again. That was don't do that
Well,
again.
no, but that's
Like you
fascinating because
learn, you learn that message, right? You learn
well,
that message.
you get that message, but you make a decision about life. And when I've met very successful people, I do a lot of traumatic healing of people who've had very bad traumatic first memories, and their decisions about life then become, I shouldn't be seen, I should hide, I'm
Oh,
afraid. And yours is quite the opposite. The fact that there's always people there to help you allow you to be a businessman. That's
Well, you have to
literally,
realize that there are people there to help you. You're not going to do this on your own. There's no way. There's other people. You got to surround yourself with all these different
no,
people.
that's what's interesting is you don't. See, you had the
Yeah.
ability, your first memory cemented that. And I've discovered that's what truly seems to separate very successful people. These
Mm.
decisions in your hard drive about how life operates.
Well, a lot of times, a lot of interviewers, as you know, will ask you, what's your biggest mistake? And I always go, I don't know. I haven't made it yet. Meaning, I'm going to make a bigger one. I've always had a failure, right? There's always been failure. You always have failures, right? I don't remember all of those, and I don't remember all the bad things, and I don't remember all the,
Well, but I have a different question. I'm going to interrupt you for a
yeah,
second. Not the
yeah.
biggest, how do you handle mistakes and failure is more interesting to me.
The big deal. They're going to happen. That's what's part of it. That's the way you got to get to where you got to go. I mean, if you don't have that, you can't have the good things. So, you're going to fail. It's not about it's not about failing fast. It's about winning fast. And so I concentrate more on what I need to do to win, knowing full well I'm going to fail. I'm a former athlete. You might not look like it, but I'm a former athlete. I know that I made a lot of bad blocks. I fumbled the balls. I did all the bad things. I got my butt kicked, whatever. But I also know I got backed up and I did it again. And I did it again. I did it better because I learned from those things. And that's the things that's just how I look at my life. It's not perfect, but did anyone die? No one died. Move on. Let's go.
I have a new book for you and I to co-author called Stick of Butter.
Yeah,
You know
stick
what?
of butter. I like stick of butter.
Stick of butter. Because
butter.
that's, you can always fix a problem and don't do it again.
Yeah. By the way, butter's just damn good. It's just good. That's the other
It
thing.
is if you're on a meat diet. Yes, as long as you don't mix it with
more
your
of it,
carbs.
more of it, more of it.
You know what? I'll tell you what, my ex-father-in-law is 91 years old, lives on mayonnaise and butter.
Yeah, my grandmother was 105 when she died. And if you knew the things she ate, and most people would freak out, So I'm more with that diet.
That's hysterical. Hey guys, we've got 1 minute left before our very first break. I want to tell you we're having definitely a fun conversation. Hopefully I'm going to ask you questions that nobody else has ever asked you. But I'm loving this. I'm loving the energy and the positivity. And we're going to come back with a little bit more about how entrepreneurs can figure out how to maybe up their 2024 with the help of Mr. Jeffrey Hayzlett. We'll be right back after this message. Don't go away.
All clear. Great segment. Back in 2.
I love that. Sandy, I'm not quite sure how you're in our room, but I love that you're here. Make sure that you're watching us on Facebook as well. So Jeffrey, where are you living right now?
I'm in the same place I've always lived, South Dakota, but I always have a place in New York. I got a place in Miami, but about to get another place in Dallas too. But but South Dakota's home. That's our home. That's where we always will be.
Where in South Dakota?
Sioux Falls. I grew up in Rapid City in the western part of the state, but the southeast part's where my wife is from, and that's where we, raised our children, and that's got a little ranch here, and that's where we're at.
I'm from New York, and I always talk about I'm from New York and LA and Florida. If there's not water like right next to me, I don't go there, and I fly over the rest of the country. But it sounds very romantic. Where are you in New York when you're there?
In Midtown, right in Hell's Kitchen area. Yeah.
That's where I started my whole Broadway career, and I wish I had purchased something down there when I had the opportunity. Who knew, right? You did.
Exactly. Well, we did pretty well with it. We've been in the right place at the right time, so it's been good. And I just go where, business goes. I mean, Miami's been a hot area for us this last year, and so that's where we're doing. I'm looking at a place. I want to do a Airbnb place that we'll do in probably Orlando and Phoenix this year, Vegas as well, because I'm just there all the time. So I kind of like going to places that are mine, lock it off. That's my part. And I rent the rest of it out. It's fine.
I think that's a great idea. As you're looking in Vegas, kind of give me a heads up, because I think that's one of the things we're going to do now. We're here in Tampa. So you come through the St. Pete area. I have a beautiful television studio here. Just so you know, we're still live on Facebook, so they can hear us.
Let's do that. Well, thank you for telling me that. But, my uncle used to be mayor of Largo.
No way. What a small world.
Yeah.
All right. Are we coming back, my darling? Thought I heard him rustling there.
I heard something.
So I'm excited to explore your whole TV world. I mean, I've known about C-Suite forever.
Yeah.
And sadly, I've finally graduated to become a CEO.
There you go.
You are listening to the Forbes Factor. To call in with a question or comment, please call 1-866-472-5788. That's 1-866-472-5788. Or send an email to Forbes@ForbesRiley.com. Now, back to the show. Here's Forbes Riley.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Forbes Factor. We focus on health, wealth, and happiness. And today I'm with an amazing guest who I'm just delighted by. You know, you guys know me. It's conversations are very free flowing, whatever kind of happens and comes out of this. But I want to circle back to the idea that you took this beautiful spirit you have and you ventured into corporate world. Why did you do that?
Well, it's because that's where the big games are played. If you want to play, I mean, I was in politics for a number of years, ran political campaigns, and then I realized, well, the real money's over here. And so that's what pulled me. And that's where the real, you talk about big games are played. The stuff they do in Washington, that's peanuts. Now, it is in terms of Portland and everything else, but it's a lot of people who have never, quite frankly, succeeded in other places. There's some good leaders without question. Don't get me wrong. No cards, no letters, please. But if you really want to see where things are done, if you really want to see the battleground of what it is to be independent and be free, you talk about the free enterprise system, you talk about business. And so, I wanted that credential of being a Fortune 100 officer. I mean, that's a very elite group of people. It's like, it's bigger than being a professional athlete, quite frankly. There's more people there. If you take officers in Fortune 100 companies, there's only 500 of us in the world, 5 officers per company. If you take that times, Fortune 1000, there's only 5,000 people in the world. Okay. Then there are more people playing professional football than there are Fortune 1000 officers. And so when you look at that, that's the elite of the elite of the elite. And I love playing in that game. I like playing in a big boys, big girls game. And that's where it was. And so, by the way, think of it as a small community. We know each other. We all know who's who. I mean, at that level, just like if you think about professional baseball, professional football, soccer, whatever, everybody knows everybody, or at least knows of those people, even if you haven't played against them, so to speak. So that's a very elite group. And so, yeah, that's like, being the all-stars. And so when you're at a Fortune 100, and so that was a great credential to have, an unbelievable experience. Forbes, I can't even tell you, how many times, by the way, was I prepared for it? Heck no. I remember sitting there one of the first days going, man, this place is screwed up. Somebody ought to do something. And then I looked around and went, oh, wait, that's me. I have to do something.
And so what credentialed you to get to that position?
I had helped them buy and sell a couple of $1 billion worth of companies. In my career, I've been able to see things and say, hey, you should really look at this. And I saw a couple companies and I went to Kodak and said, this is at the core of what you do, at the intersect between imaging science and material science. And you should really look at this company and it'll help. And by the way, the companies that are there today are the companies that I sold them way back in 2000, 2004, 2005.
Wow.
And when I finally sold them a couple of companies and was involved in those transactions, that's when they said, hey, no, you're going to come over here. And I said, sure, I'll do that. But I want it, based on these credentials, or these, not credentials, this criteria. And part of that is I wanted strategy because, I had vision that, hey, maybe I can come to this CEO of this company or of another company of that size. When you think about a $180 billion company, I was running a $17 billion marketing budget. I mean, these are some pretty big numbers. And so, having come from a 3-person, public relations consulting firm, which I did, to that role was eye-opening. Because I'd be sitting in these meetings now managing billions of dollars. And I literally, my father-in-law asked me, he was a farmer from a rancher from South Dakota. He said, how do you do that? I said, Bob, all I do is take the zeros off the numbers. I said, if it's a good decision in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, then it's a good decision on Wall Street, just bigger numbers. And that's the way you have to look at things. And that's just how I always do things. I break it down pretty quick.
And so what's a takeaway for us entrepreneurs? It's funny. Until just this moment, I really never thought about the level of C-suite executives and what they're in charge of and what those numbers really are. I certainly know entrepreneurism. I've sold $2.5 billion in my career. I've been involved with lots of companies, but probably never a Fortune 100 company. What couple of things that you took away from being in charge of all that?
Well, first of all, it's a very lonely place. Everyone thinks it's hustle and bustle, but it's pretty lonely. I mean, I basically was like 4 or 6 people on my entire floor because I own the floor. I mean, it was mine, right? Along with one of my other executives that was up there. So that's one of the things. So it's you got to make the decisions, and it's really up to you. So the person that's going to help you is looking in the mirror. That's really truly it. I always called it the mirror test. That's the first book I wrote, was about the mirror test, because the only person coming to your aid is the one that's looking in the mirror. And so you have to really truly, understand. You have to be very grounded too, and really understand what problems you're trying to solve, because you're moving at breakneck speed. I mean, Forbes, you got to imagine at that level, I would go to a trade show and literally at 7 a.m. when I'm supposed to leave, there's someone outside my door. They're briefing me on the schedule. They're handing me a Diet Mountain Dew, because I used to drink Diet Mountain Dew like it was water years ago. I don't do that anymore. But and they would hand me a Diet Mountain Dew. Somebody hand me a fried egg sandwich, because that's what I like to have. And there would be somebody who walked ahead of us to go press the elevator button so that the elevator doors would be open by the time I got there. But because we're trying to compress that much time. And they pre-walked the route that we were going to go, so we knew exactly how to get there. I mean, so at that level, your time is very fragile or very valuable to you in terms of understanding that. So time is money. And so your time is inventory. And that gave me a great sense as I went out and became a Hall of Fame speaker, a best-selling author, consultant, where we're basically trading time for money, right? And the understanding of time was probably one of the best things. And then the next thing is to go and find experts. You got a heart problem, go to a cardiologist, not a general practitioner. So why the things that you can do, certainly you can do them, and you can do them very well, but it's really truly about delegating, eliminating, or automating. Okay. And so I spend my day with those three words at the beginning of my day, and I look at those things that I can eliminate on my schedule. I might eliminate my entire schedule if something else is more important than something else. That's the way it happened. I mean, my first days at Kodak, I helped to sell a company for $2 billion. My first few days that I was there, I canceled the Olympics the first few days I was there. Our participation in the Olympics, which was a huge decision, because since 1896, we were the very first modern day, supporter of the Olympics, but we were paying $100 million a year in order to be a sponsor of the Olympics. Well, how many cameras must you sell at a 10% margin, in order to pay for the Olympics? You can't. There's not enough cameras in the world that are sold that will pay for that. But you have to make those kinds of decisions.
That's
constantly.
a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but it was an easy one. I turned to the boss, I turned to my CEO, and he says, "Hey, Jeff, this is the decision that George Eastman made, and you're now telling me that we need to do this." I said, "Antonio, let me lay this out for you." And I did. And he goes, "I'm with you. I understand." And he goes, "You can make that." And I remember him said, "You can make that tough decision." I said, "They're not tough when they're right. They're not tough. I love that. Right. And think about people you've had to fire, Forbes. I mean, I don't like firing people, but there are times we had to, and if it's right, you have to do it. That's
it's funny. I'm a rather woo-woo creature, and last year my word for 2023 was implementation. My word, which you just happened to mention on my very first podcast, is delegation, and then in parentheses, and domination. That's what this 2024 is about for me.
Good for you. Love it.
But I will tell you that delegation is still something, as an entrepreneur who's never had that level of ability to delegate. I'm working on understanding it on my own. I now have a very large team. I have a team, not quite to your size. I would love you to drill down, though, on timing. When you're an entrepreneur, because a lot of my audience are solopreneurs, how do you understand delegation of time?
Well, you have to look at what can you can do. We're all given. That's the one thing we're all given. That's the same. Okay. It's the only thing we're all given that's the same, as opposed to money and resources and other thing, is time. Right. So the best use of that time, that's your secret weapon. So you cannot waste it. It is the most valuable thing that you have. And by the way, if you go back to, we talked about reading books early, Stephen Covey, former friend of mine, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, you have to balance your time, between your business, your personal life, right? Your family, right? And, what was it? And your spiritual, and being spiritual. I mean, now I've probably had.
And your physical, stick your physical.
You know what? I was going to say, because I'm talking to you, right? Of all people, it's your health and wellness, without question. And as I get older, I wish I'd have paid more attention to that. And I'm doing a better job of that, right?
Good.
But, and that's why I'm no longer drinking the sodas and the other stuff. If it's not natural, okay, organic, or it's not water, wine, whiskey, okay, I'm not drinking it, and
Wow.
milk. I love milk. I love milk.
Really? We'll talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that some other time.
yeah. I love milk. Well, that's a holdover from a long time. But that's why I told you I love butter. I love fats. I love all that stuff. I mean, but and luckily I've got some good genes that I don't have bad. I don't have any numbers that are bad. I have no
Good.
numbers that are bad. So
Well, enjoy that.
yeah,
It is fascinating to me. So when you left the corporate world, what was the exit like, and why did you leave?
I quit. I could have stayed, and I could have stayed for a while. I was done. There was an incident that occurred in the boardroom with the team. I'm not going to talk about it publicly, but it was out of character and out of my sense of morals. We went through some tough times in 2008 where we had to, I laid off. I was in charge of laying off 8,500 people.
Ooh.
And that's not a good thing. And I just didn't like the way we handled that. And I didn't like the way some of the other officers responded. And I just didn't care to be around people like that anymore. So I quit.
Fascinating.
So,
And what did you do right after?
I went out in the speaking circuit. I did what I did before. I went out in the speaking circuit and hung up my card as a consultant and said, hey, here I am. And so I went on the road, started doing speaking. I came out with a book right away, hit the speaking circuit and started building up. And then that led to my show on Bloomberg, television show on Bloomberg. And then that led me, because I was doing a show called The C-Suite with Jeffrey Hayzlett, where I take you into the C-Suite, where 99% of the people who work at a company never got to go into. And then I would tell you the secrets that occur in the C-Suites and what the conversations were like. And so that was in a primetime show that was number one in its time slot. And then I said, hey, I had more people watching me on TV than watching me digitally than were watching me on broadcast TV. I turned to Mike Bloomberg and I said, Mike, we should really build this business up. We should do a digital. They weren't interested in that. And I said, well, then I'm leaving. And I started C-Suite TV, which eventually also became C-Suite Radio. And the rest is history. Now we're 50 million downloads. We're in 38 markets. We're on United TV. I'm the longest lasting running show on United and other airlines now. And it's just amazing. So we're having a blast.
I've got a comment that just came through. It says, late, I caught you, but now how lucky I am to listen to this conversation. So yes, I agree with that.
Well, thank you.
There's so many questions that I've got at the moment. One of them is some big takeaways. I did not realize that you had a show. Forgive me, I was not watching Bloomberg television. I was too busy watching Home Shopping.
Yeah, there you go.
By the way, if I'd had enough understanding or had connected to you earlier, one of my goals when they were going through some massive changes is I thought, I need to be CEO of this company. I said, they don't understand the structure of their own company. And I watched it crumble, and then they got bought by QVC because they were in fact dying.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting. I've never decided to venture into the corporate world. I'm going to stay where I am very happily here, but I do run my own world, as many of my people do. Give me a couple of suggestions before we go off to our next break about C-suite conversations for solopreneurs.
Well, they're straightforward. If you have a C-suite, a lot of people think in the C-suite that we're meeting and talking all the time together. I might have saw my CEO once or twice a month. Once or twice. We might have talked on the phone about the same number of times. Now, this is when we have private jets. He's got his, I got mine. We're all flying all over the place, doing what we have to do, all over the world, doing the things we have to do. And I was the face and the voice of Kodak at the time too. So I was much more visible and also with the customers. But so we had a very clear definition of conditions of satisfaction. So the first thing is, what are your conditions of satisfaction? I always ask every entrepreneur, the first question is, what problem are you solving? Because they'll start telling me stories about what they're doing and so forth. I don't give a crap about that. I'm trying to be good on your language. I get bleeped on my own shows because I would use the other word. But most entrepreneurs don't always know what problem you're solving. And that's the key is, and so inside that C-suite, we're very clear about the problem we're solving because we don't have much time. And we're really trying to get it done. And if they don't, you don't want to be part of that C-suite. So the first thing in that C-suite conversation is really understand, what are our conditions of satisfaction? What is it we're doing? And then what problems are we solving? And by the way, knowing the problems that you're solving is where the real value, the real money is. and the speed to the lead that you can get to in a much more efficient manner.
Who decides that at those levels? Is that just something
Usually,
that
it depends on who's got the responsibility, who's the real owner. If it was, obviously with brand, the CEO is going to have involvement, but on the marketing stuff, it was always my call, because those were, he was giving me the air cover to go do it. With the head of finance, he decides those things, right? And even, like when it was around marketing around a company that has 19 divisions, let's talk about that. A company with 19 different divisions, even though there's a president of that division and he or she is holding the P&L, they're the real owner of that. But if it dealt with marketing, I could override that and say, no, you're going to do it this way, because that was the tension that you put into the system. So healthy tension is a very good thing to have, because it's a check and balance, right? So you might have a lineman in a football team that's supposed to do this job, but the quarterback's calling the shot, right? So, but and so forth and so on. But don't tell me how to block.
Right.
Those are the kind of things, and you're going to have that tension, which is great in the huddle, but we all know when to shut our mouth and go do our jobs. And so that's the kind of give and take that high performance teams have. We all know what we're supposed to do. And one of the cool things about that is, like, if you use this football analogy, if I missed a block and I didn't do something right, and we come back to the huddle, I don't just put my head down and shut up and hope they don't know. They know, because the quarterback just got sacked. What I want to do is come back to the huddle, tell my teammates, I screwed up. I missed the block. I won't let that happen again. Or, hey, I need some help. That guy is stronger than me or faster than me today. I don't know why, but I need some help. Because that's what high performance teams do.
what's so cool is, thanks to my beautiful husband, I know what you're talking about in terms of football. I finally watched the game.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, we're taking our second break. Yes, I have a great story about watching Patrick Mahomes, and my entire last year was based around him taking the ball to the end zone after he had broken his ankle, going, you do that. That's what we do here. All right, guys, you're listening to the Forbes Factor. I'm just enamored with my guest right now. His name is Jeffrey Hayzlett. Don't go away for the third part of our show today. We'll be right back. You're watching the Forbes Factor. That's awesome.
All
Good.
Great segment. Back in 2.
Thank you. Yeah, I wish, it's funny. I know
How's that guy of yours doing, by the way?
Joshua?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, he was in a car accident.
Oh, yeah.
4 years ago. He still limps. He did go back to the Olympia a year after he got hurt, and he did not win. And that hurt his spirits so much that he went back again with great force and won 4th and 5th place. And he was ready to retire. He's 46 years old. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, I got one more Arnold in me. And here's the crazy thing about that. And this is fun for everybody listening, a little side nugget. He recently got flown to LA in the new Super Bowl that's coming up this January. Arnold Schwarzenegger's in a State Farm commercial. He plays the old version of himself, and then they digitally remastered his face to be a young Arnold, only they used Joshua's body. How many people can say they were Arnold Schwarzenegger's body?
Yeah. Well, the only thing I can say, I look like Elvis just before he died, but that's it. That's the closest I can do.
That's actually very sweet. No, I should connect you. Joshua's got a beautiful program about how he mastered the art of lifting so that it's safe, efficient, and he does nothing you would imagine. He does no squats, no barbells, no overhead presses, not even sit-ups. He does something very unique, and I'm quite enamored. I'm not the best when it comes to that kind of marketing, but I think he needs to be a brand that's out there.
That's awesome.
Got
It
about
was
20 seconds.
great. Watch the comeback that he had, and then watch your interaction with him, which was, true love. And Forbes, it's amazing that social media does afford us the opportunity to see other people, which is great,
I
and be
appreciate
connected.
that and agree with that. We're going to come right back. Yes.
You are listening to the Forbes Factor. To call in with a question or comment, please call 1-866-472-5788. That's 1-866-472-5788. Or send an email to Forbes@ForbesRiley.com. Now back to the show. Here's Forbes Riley.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm reading these comments on Facebook that are coming in so fast I can hardly read them. But everyone's like, you have to bring Jeffrey to Mastermind. Well, I'll tell you what, tonight is Naked Mastermind. And I'm going to tell you, I think this man is buff enough to show up. So I'm going to put that challenge out to him. Between you and David Meltzer, we're going to vote sexiest man. Yeah.
Oh, hey, listen, I've seen David Meltzer naked, and it's a sight. So there you go. No,
Do I want to know why?
no, I love Meltzer. Meltzer is like one of those great people. I mean, you know this in this business. We know the real people. We know the fake ones, the false prophets, and there's a lot of false prophets out of there. You are truly one of the real people that are helping people, and I just want to applaud you for that. Meltzer's a guy who had a tough life, but his history has made him what he is today. And he's amazing. And every time, David, I love to get together with David. I love people like that who immediately you can sense the chemistry that comes through just the video camera, and it's amazing. I mean, you and I have that. We've always had that. And yet, here we've never seen each other face to face, but we've always done this kind of stuff. And I just love people like that. So hats off to you for being able to pull great people together.
You know what? I'm feeling very blessed. I certainly lived long enough, went through enough, and figured some stuff out. And I got to credit my children. I've got two very smart, aggressive kids that not only do I want to leave a legacy for, and so I've got both sides. I've got on one side of my brain Jack LaLanne, and I got to stand next to Jack for 8 years. And he's arguably the godfather of fitness. His wife is still around. She's 97 years old, and she said something very powerful to me because at some point as I was pushing the age number up there, I got a little sad. And she sat me down and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Look at," and she showed me a picture of her on the cover of this book she'd done. And she said, "You know how old I am there?" I'm like, "I don't know, 40. She said, "No, I'm 62. She said, my 60s were the best years of my life. Don't screw it up." And I will tell you that I hear that every single day. And I think that more people need to hear that. And it's one reason I've chosen to be this role model. I've got a younger husband and I've got much younger kids. My kids are 42 years younger than me. And they want me to be around for a while. And I think if I hadn't had that, I wouldn't be the person I am. And I do view myself as quite the role model because as a woman who fought in her industry forever, I certainly succeeded or failed and I've got stories to share. But now, like you said, this is the real deal. And you said something else that I appreciate about following us on social media. At some point, because my husband he doesn't like to talk about himself. As good as he looks, he's not about himself, which is crazy. And social media tends to say, "Hey, here's a spotlight on me, look at me," unless you keep this mantra, which I have, that you're doing this to show other people. Yeah. And so he's going to go back and do the Arnold again in March. And I said, the only way that it makes sense for you to do this is if we follow as a community, your journey. I've woken up every day next to this champion who got physically crushed 4 years ago, sat in a wheelchair, went through depression, and got up with his crutch and said, when COVID is over and they open the gyms, I'm going to be a winner. And I'm like, and then I'll tell you what, Jeffrey, to watch him limp on stage at his first competition almost shattered my heart. And I've never been that close to a champion, a physical specimen who just says, look, every night he wakes up and he's in pain. He'll never get over that because of his injury, but he does it. And he looked at me the other day and said, "So you go into the gym?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "And what does that mean? Who are you?" I'm like, all right.
But I mean, but what's the alternative? I mean, the alternative is you shrivel up and die. And I mean, and I understand for some people they've got some really tough things they've got to go through. And I get that. But in the end, it's like look, I didn't have the best life growing up, but I'm going to make sure my kids had a better life, and it's going to be better in some way, shape, or form. That's the card you dealt. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what good people. Look, like one time I was on a public board. The board we had the chairman trying to take over the company, and some of the board members got together and said, "You can't just do this. You got to go through a process." And in the end, we get sued because all the shareholders are suing. And even though there's 3 out of the 5 board members who say that you're not doing it this way, we made him do things, and he sued us the whole bit. It was tough. I lost a lot of money during that process, but and my wife says, "Why are you doing this?" I said, "Because it's the right thing to do. It's what good people do. You stand up and you live on principles and you do the things you're supposed to do because that's what we're here to do." And I remember we were the front page of the Wall Street Journal and everything. It was covered all over the papers because we took on the chairman of this company and said, "No, we're not doing it this way. You can't do it this way. You can't steal the company." And you do it, but the shareholders vote on it. But I'm likely they're not going to vote that way. So that's what you have to do. Just like your husband, you have to get up and do it every day because that's what you got to do.
What brings you the greatest joy?
My grandkids, my grandbabies, watching those little girls, and doing anything I can to imprint this on them because I know for young women, it's sometimes tough in terms of their self-worth and everything else. I want them to walk with incredible swagger because they're smart, they're intelligent, they happen to be beautiful and pretty, and they're nice, and it's unbelievable. And just got a brand new third grandbaby, and I can't wait to see her, in a couple of weeks again. And I want that. I want to help that. That's my role. Look, I've done what I've done, and I'm going to keep doing it. But the real thing is, what can I do for them? And how can I help them? And so that brings me the greatest joy.
Well, then I would love to introduce you to my 21-year-old daughter, who's the CEO of my company. Talking about C-suite. She's been running this company since she was 17 years old.
Yeah, I love it.
It's worth a lot.
Yeah.
She's currently with her brother in Guatemala. They went surfing in Belize or scuba diving or whatever they're doing now, and running a major company. And I'm doing that because she's this crazy role model. She has inspired me to have a whole new part of my life, and maybe she'll inspire your grandbabies.
Yeah, isn't that the cool thing to be able to see that transfers and then watch them? I would have said it like 5 minutes ago in my head. My kids are my role model because of what they do. Now, they do things differently than I would do. I think sometimes they're nuts, right? But they think the same thing of me. That's what makes us a family. That's what makes us wonderful. And and I just think that's important for you to do. And now, my point, I sit back and let them do what they do. I occasionally, if they'll ask me, I'll be glad to provide some insight or what I think is counsel, and counsel is something different. I run masterminds as well. We've got a thought leadership one. I've got one for heroes that have to sign a statement saying they're going to put people above profits. So, we get together and I talk about, we don't provide advice. Advice is given by people who've never done it before. We like to do counsel. Counsel is given by people who have done it there once, twice, 3 times, and say, hey, here's how I did it. You do it any way you want. And I think that's important for people to know that you can do it you can build anything any way you want, do it any way you want, raise your kids any way you want. But let me tell you my story. This is a good.
You've witnessed a lot. You've been at the forefront of a lot. I'm a little nervous as I'm looking at the landscape. We're going into another election, which I kind of hate these years, especially as somebody who loves buying television time. What's your feeling about the future? What's going on for you?
It's nuts. I mean, look, I used to be the, partner of one of the guys that actually, became president. I was a judge on Celebrity Apprentice for 3 years on that show. And it's without question. What was it said? We got one guy who's old and 80, and we got another one that's facing 80, a year to life, so it's a little. We're going to go through this. This country is made to weather the storms, good and bad, and we'll get through this. And it's nuts, and it should not be this way, without question. I think most of us look around and say this should not be this way. But we've got good grounding. We've got our founding fathers and mothers actually built a structure that's really good, and we'll get through it, and we'll figure our way through it, and we'll get through this craziness, and hope someone will come through. We'll have a ways to come through.
You see, and you see that.
Good enough. There's enough checks and balances that won't allow a lot of the stuff that we've seen, right? And so we've got to change some of that. Again, let's get back to the things that we're solving. And the reason we're in most of this mess is because people, didn't take responsibility. Now we're finally, I wrote in my book, my last book, The Hero Factor, that Trump has actually been really great for this country. And now people say, oh, make America great. I'm not talking about that.
Right.
He was great because he forced you to pick a side.
Yeah.
And for a long time in this country, we never picked sides. We never said, hey, this is what I stand for. And we need more of that in this world. And the more of that we have in this world, it will get to a better place. And for a long time, we didn't vote. People didn't vote. They didn't give. They didn't do the things they needed to do. They tried to shirk their jury duty. They tried to stop, listening to politics. We need that. They stopped. Oh, we shouldn't talk about politics at dinner or at cocktail parties or at gatherings. We should do all of that. Okay. Because that's how we have a greater understanding. This weekend, I got invited to go pheasant hunting. Okay. I love to go pheasant hunting. For people that don't like hunting, that's our state bird, and we kill it here in the state of South Dakota. Okay. That's what we do. We hunt our state mammal, our state fish, our state bird. Okay. We do all those. We're the only state that does that. Right. And I'm going with a person that in 1980, he worked on another campaign and I worked on another. We went to Boise State. Okay, we haven't seen each other in 15 years. We are total opposites in our political standing, not our values, but our standing and the way in which we get there. But we're going hunting together with guns. Okay, and come back, and we will come back in hugging and kissing each other in essence, right? Because we can have that great conversation and know you can have civil discourse without hating the other person across the aisle.
Oh man, your voice has to be loud. We've got 2 minutes at the end of this show, which is impossible, hard to believe. Give me some thoughts for what you want people to leave this broadcast with.
Hey, we're going to hit an economic crisis. We're going to have some downturns, but during the worst crisis, some of the greatest businesses have been born. Okay. When you think back, 20 years ago or back to 2008, Uber, was born. Airbnb was born. Who would imagine that you would let people come over to your house, sit naked on your couch, and they would pay you money for it? Okay.
Sit naked on your couch? Wait a second.
Yeah. Well, think about it. So there's going to be great opportunities. So there's going to be some tough economic crises out there without question, but there's great opportunities if you work hard and do the right things and get to solving the problem you're supposed to be solving. So,
Jeffrey, this has been amazing. I cannot wait to continue this conversation. How do we find you?
Just reach out to me. I'm on social media. Find me on C-Suite Network, C-Suite Network, or at Hayzlett.com, HAYZLETT.com. You can find me or any social media. I'm everywhere.
What a prince. Your kids, grandkids, and that wife of all those years is quite lucky. Thank you for spending this time with me. And I look forward to seeing you again.
Let's do it again. This has been too long in the making.
Right? Hello. Let's go. Craziness. I just adore you. All right, you guys, for those of you watching, thanks so much, everybody on Facebook. Let's start out this year, 2024, with a bang. We're going to roar with 24. I appreciate my guys at Voice America. I just want to send some love to them. They work very hard to make sure this broadcast is top rated, is on as often as it is. And just, I'm living in a state of amazing gratitude and thank you. Let me say goodbye to Jeffrey. Thank you so very much. And everybody there, I'm just going to leave you with these thoughts that you may only live once, but you know what? If you do it right, once could be enough. All right. On that note, bye guys. And I'll see you next time right here on the Forbes Factor.
All clear. Great job today, everyone. Fantastic show.
Thank you so much.
Have an amazing week. Take care.
Bye for everyone on Facebook. Jeffrey, that was extraordinary. I don't know what the heck took me so long to reach out.
Well, it's okay. No, wait. Well, schedules don't always jive sometimes. We should get together, though. I don't know what your schedule is like. If you're going to be in New York anytime soon, I'll be in New York and I'm really we're doing a lot in Dallas, Forbes. It's unbelievable.
What's going on in Dallas?
Our community is exploding down there. We have in the side of the C-suite, I got about 10,000 paying members now. We've got, as I said, the downloads, the stuff that we're doing. We're just building this community and we're just seeing so much stuff come out of Dallas. So we're opening up an office. One of the things that we did for our C-suite network is we're partnering with all of these flex spaces, like the WeWorks, but not WeWork. Mm-hmm. And they're building C-suite into all of their leases. And so they're signing them up as members. We give everybody a marketing cloud, CRM system, all that stuff. Yeah. It's okay. Go hug somebody.
Come say hi. No, he'd like to say hi. No. Yeah, I would think you want to, yes. He's preparing for Naked Mastermind, only he's completely naked and it's like a bit much.
Yeah, it's too much. Way too TMI. But anyway,
well, but when you
we're building all that stuff in. And we're having a blast doing it.
Wait, what does that mean they're building that in? Because, I own a television studio that's very WeWork. People come in and they use it all the time. I'm just curious, when you say that, what does that mean?
So when people go into a WeWork, in this case, they go into Venture X or they go into a City Summit location in Dallas, 48 locations. There he is. How you doing, brother?
You can't, no. Oh, God.
Hi.
A lot of you here.
How are you doing?
Good to
so
see
Joshua,
you.
say hi to Jeffrey.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Hey, good to see you're doing so well, brother.
I do the best I can.
Well, he's been following your journey since long before you got hurt.
Yeah, so, I've been watching you. So it's been good. Yeah. And then when you went through the motorcycle accident and afterwards, and where she thought you were going to be at the first few days, I remember that. It was like, oh my God, and then where you're at today. Now you're walking and talking. That's all that counts, man.
True. I'm about to go swim. So.
And competing.
Yeah.
And competing.
Yeah, this is crazy.
I still have the drive.
Yeah, well, that's the name of the game. dude,
Yeah.
every day, just do that shit, man. That's it. So there's something bigger and better for you through this process. So don't forget that.
Well, he's launching a new interesting brand. Jeffrey, when we get to that stage, it's going to make you laugh, but I think Josh is going to ignite the world something. He's got something going to set the world on fire.
I hope
Cool.
so. That's the plan.
I
At
love
least teach some people.
I love you.
Yeah.
Okay, get it.
All right. Thank you, Jeffrey. Nice
All right,
seeing
see
you.
you, man.
Don't lose the towel.
Yeah. So I'll be down in Tampa, and I'll make that happen.
When are you going to be down here?
I'll be down soon. I don't know when it's going to be, but it'll be in the next 3 months.
Really?
So,
all right. Well,
yeah.
Hopefully we'll connect before that, because I'd love to see, all kidding aside, one of the reasons that I personally have not been a bigger brand is that aside from raising 2 kids with a narcissistic, ex-husband,
Yeah.
and I let that get to me, I just wasn't willing to play a bigger game. And so as I'm listening to you talk, it's like, this is that time.
Yeah. I had one of the best compliments I ever had made me. Some speaker got up one day and said, who would you like to be most like? And she said, I would love to have the eloquence of Les Brown and the swagger of Jeffrey Hayzlett. And I thought that, which is one of the best compliments I've ever had about me, and I tell people it ain't bragging when it's true. So I learned early on, Forbes, that, when I was in Sioux Falls, I can do that in Iowa. Wait a second. I can do that in Illinois. I can do that in Japan. I can do that. You know what I mean? And I just realized that I'm just as big as anybody else. It's just a matter of money and time or expertise, and we can go do that. So make that happen and just go.
Well, what I'm experiencing from you is a massive sense of graciousness that I also get from Meltzer. I've been on both of his television shows. And I think, again, this is I think I'm also a very different human than I've been a couple of years ago. I think teaching as much as I have has definitely changed me and my desire to be out there and help people, because what we do is life-changing.
And if you help, by the way, that's the focus. And I tell people this all the time. And my team will say, Jeff, why are you spending time with that person? I said, there's a pony in there somewhere. Go help. And if you serve other people, it comes back to you, a lot. It just about 10-fold, 20-fold, 100-fold. And if nothing else, you did something good.
Well, I appreciate your generosity. I'm excited to connect to you again. Thank you
so much.
Let's do it. And,
all right. See you later.
Okay. Bye-bye. And thank you.